Hey there, everyone. Welcome to Bad Kids Don't Exist. This is the podcast that helps adults better understand kids to create environments where kids and their caregivers thrive. My name is Stuart Perry. I go by Mister Stu. I'm a licensed clinical social worker, a child therapist, and an autism spectrum disorder clinical specialist, and I love helping adults better understand kids. I find that so much frustration and stress of having kids, working with kids, or being around kids just comes from a misunderstanding about children and their minds. So I'm here to hopefully help alleviate some of that stress, some of that confusion, and really help adults better understand kids. I'm so excited to be talking with you today. If you are watching live, feel free to throw any questions into the chat, and I'm happy to answer those as we go. I do have some questions to answer today. I've got some things to talk about. I've got some thanks and congratulations to give, and I'm so excited about our topics. I'm going to jump right in. Just yesterday, Thursday, October 10th, today is Friday, October 11th, as I'm recording this, my brand new book came out, and this is my proof copy. That's why it says not for resale. If you order a beautiful copy, it will not say not for resale on it. But my brand new book, it's called Putting the Pieces Together, Understanding and Supporting Children with Autism Spectrum Disorder. It just came out yesterday, and you all, I am blown away, so grateful for your support. It has 5-star reviews on Amazon from people who got a preview copy of the book, and now from people who have actually ordered the book and read it in the last day. It's been amazing. And also, it got up to number 5. At my last check, it was number 5 in special education books on Amazon. There are thousands, I don't know, maybe millions of special education books on Amazon. For this to be at number 5 just has my mind blown. Thank you all so much for those who have sent encouraging words, for those who read the book before it was released and gave me some thoughts and some notes, for those who have read the book and written a review. Thank you so, so much. This book means a lot to me. And if you are caring for a child with autism, or if you work with children with autism, I hope that this book will just demystify autism for you. I have worked with parents, and as I diagnose their child with autism or start to discuss what an autism diagnosis could mean for their child, I've had parents break down and cry. I've had parents ask me, how could this happen? And all that. This book hopefully will help you to see autism is not something to try to fix. Autism is not something that is a death sentence. Autism is a different way of seeing the world, and that with the right supports, those symptoms can become superpowers. We don't need to change children. We need to help support children to live in our world. And hopefully this book will help to do that. One of the best reviews that I've read so far came from a teacher and a teacher's aide who said that they have used lots of different techniques for children with autism, but they never understood why they worked. And now that they understand why those different things work by reading the book, they're able to develop other strategies to support the children that they work with. And that's really the best that I could hope for. So if you haven't yet, go out and grab, I guess you don't have to go anywhere. You can just go on Amazon. It is available on Kindle for that ebook platform. It's also available in paperback. The ebook is just $4.99. The paperback is just $9.99. It's also available on Kindle Unlimited. So if you are a Kindle Unlimited subscriber, you can actually read this book on Kindle Unlimited. It would mean the world to me if you do check it out. Write a review. Let me know what you thought. And hopefully it helps to demystify, bring some hope, and help you to see that really it's all just about putting the pieces together. So thank you. That is the first thing I wanted to talk about today. other than Great British Bake Off. But thank you so much for all of your support and for purchasing the book and for helping it rise in the rankings on Amazon. It just means the world to me, and you all are fantastic. Thank you so, so, so much. Putting the pieces together, understanding and supporting children with autism spectrum disorder. You all are great. Thank you so much for that. With that, I am ready to jump into the first question of the day. And I've got all the questions here, but I'm trying to decide which. There's some doozies today, you all, and I am excited. Okay, I know the one I want to do next. Yes. All right, so this, I guess, is the first question of the day after putting the pieces together, understanding and supporting children with autism spectrum disorder. If you are watching this right now, please make sure to like this video and subscribe to my channel. It will help adults like you understand and support the children in your care so that both you and they can thrive. But here is the first question of the day. Here it is. My child acts out, and my first reaction is to take away their phone or tablet, but it doesn't always seem to help in the long run. Why isn't this working, and is there a better way to discipline them? This is a fantastic question. If you have had the same question, please like this video, subscribe to the channel. This is one that comes up all of the time. Parents asking about, I take their phone away and I take their tablet away and they just don't even seem to care, or they used to care but now they don't. What's going on? What else can I take from them? That's the only thing they like. All of this. And it really comes from a lack of understanding about what discipline really means. Discipline in our society has become synonymous with punishment. And discipline and punishment are not the same thing. Discipline means to guide and direct and show the way, and punishment is what it is. It's doing something to or taking something away. Punishment can sometimes be a part of discipline, but does not always have to be a part of discipline. And punishment and consequences are not always the same thing. You don't have to punish a child for them to receive consequences about their behavior. So let me kind of break it down and talk to you about what happens when you take away a phone or a tablet arbitrarily. And let me tell you what arbitrarily would mean. If a phone or a tablet had nothing to do with the disruptive behavior that your child showed, then it is arbitrary to take away the phone or the tablet or the video game system or whatever it is if it had nothing to do with the negative behavior. Now let's say if the negative behavior was they were up too late on their phone and they weren't studying for a test that they had, and then they got a low grade on the test, then taking away the phone, it's not even punishment, it's taking away the phone so that your child can succeed better at school. It's not, you did this thing, so now I'm going to do this thing back to you. That sets up a dynamic where it is you versus your child. And in situations where you are really wanting to discipline your child in a nurturing way, if you set up this me versus you dynamic, it feels very, it will cause a lot of tension in the relationship. It will cause more disruption. And then eventually your child will not want to listen to what you have to say because they will think, you know what? It's been me versus you this whole time. So why am I going to follow what you have to say now? If the electronic has something to do with the negative behavior, then it makes sense to take that negative behavior away. But let's say that the negative behavior has nothing to do with a phone or a tablet. Let's say that they were just rude to you one day. Well, then taking away the phone or the tablet is not logical. It doesn't form in the child's mind as, oh, because I did this, this had to happen. It instead turns into, because I did this, my parent got angry back at me, and now they're trying to show me how angry they are, and now we're in a war to prove who's the most angry. So now it becomes, okay, I'm going to do this thing to you, then you're going to do this thing back to me, and now I'm going to show you how mad I am that you took my phone away, so I'm going to do this thing back to you, and now you're going to escalate the consequence, and you're going to make it last longer, and then we're in this back and forth that doesn't really even have anything to do with the original negative behavior. And it doesn't teach the child what to do instead. Let's look back at that example of if your child is up too late on their electronic device and they are not able to perform well on a test because they weren't studying, they were on their phone or their tablet. Well, in that case, it makes sense to take away the phone or the tablet because it's directly related to the negative behavior. And it's kind of one of these, hey, I have to take this from you so that you can do the things you have to do, so that you can do well at the things that are required and expected of you. But if it's just, you didn't do well on the test and they weren't up late on their phone or on their tablet or whatever, it's just, you did bad on this test, so now I'm going to take your phone away. Well, now it's just, I'm disappointed in you and I'm going to take your phone away. And now there's multiple consequences all stacking up. It just doesn't work. But if you take it away because it's related to the behavior, it teaches the child in their mind, oh, this is what I need to do. I can come back to my phone, my tablet, my Chromebook, my video game system, whatever it is, after I have done the thing that is required of me. And it teaches them what to do instead. If it's just arbitrary and it's just, I'm mad at you, so I need to show you how mad I am at you by taking something away, that doesn't teach the child what to do instead. And in fact, that's not discipline at all. That is just a punishment because you are upset. And those punishments don't work in the long run. And just like this person said, why isn't this working? I don't know if it used to work and now it's not working. But over time, your child will just become numb to those things because they'll just be like, you know what, forget it. There's no way that I'm not going to have my phone taken because that's just what they always do. They just take my phone away and there's no way for me to hold on to my phone. So now when they take my phone away, just forget it. It doesn't even matter anymore because I wasn't going to be able to hold on to it anyway. Don't use that as your default. Instead, try to find something that's directly related to the behavior. If they are being rude to you, it just says my child acts out. So I'm not sure what exactly the acting out behavior is, but let's say that they are just rude to you. Well, then sit down and have a conversation with them about, hey, I don't treat you that way, and I was just wondering where that's coming from. That is a consequence, and it doesn't involve punishment, but it's discipline because you are working with your child to help them overcome the negative behavior. And that's really what discipline is all about. It's all about working with your child to overcome the negative behavior, not trying to show your child, oh, here's how angry I am. Let me take something else from you. There's two types of consequences. There are what are called natural consequences. Those are consequences that just naturally happen. It would be like if you don't wear elbow pads or knee pads when you're rollerblading, which I don't even know if kids do that anymore, but when I was a kid, that was like required of us. We had to wear our elbow pads and our knee pads. Now, if I didn't wear my elbow pads and my knee pads and I fell down and I scraped my knee, that's a natural consequence. You didn't do what you were supposed to do, this thing happened. Well, if that happens, my parents didn't come along and also say, and now you're grounded from rollerblading. Because guess what? I'd already received my consequence. I didn't need a punishment on top of the consequence. Now, if I continually didn't wear my elbow pads and knee pads and kept falling down and all that kept happening, then they would need to add what's called a logical consequence, which is what we consider punishments. And a logical consequence is something that makes sense because of the negative behavior to add on to help the child make a better choice in the future. So if I have continuously rollerbladed without my elbow pads and knee pads, then my parents may say, hey, you have to not rollerblade for this weekend because you haven't been able to show us that you can be safe. So we have to take that away from you, and hopefully that time will help you realize why it's so important that you wear your elbow pads and knee pads. Same thing can be true in these situations where I had a parent, and if their child was physically aggressive with anyone, whether they were physically aggressive with people at school or physically aggressive with people at home, then they wouldn't be allowed to hang out with their friends after school. And that was just the parent saying, you haven't shown that you can be safe today. It wasn't, I'm so mad at you, I'm going to take away your time with your friends. That's not what it was. It was, hey, you haven't shown that you can be safe around other people today, so we're going to have to take that away from you until you can show us that you can be safe. And the next day was a brand new chance to show that you can be safe. So those logical consequences, they have to be tied to the original negative behavior, and they have to make sense in the level that they are. It can't be, hey, you didn't study for this test, so now I'm taking your phone away for a month. That doesn't make sense. That's way too long of a time for one night of missed studying. But if you say, hey, you're going to need to do your homework, you're going to need to hand your phone in when you get home from school, and you're going to need to do all your work before you get your phone back. Now that makes sense. It's the same level, and it's directly related to the negative behavior. Don't always think that a punishment is necessary. Punishments are not necessary for discipline. Discipline is guiding the child and working with the child to overcome negative behaviors. Sometimes it's just a conversation. You don't have to prove how mad you are. You don't have to tell them how disappointed you are. It's just, hey, I see that this is going on. That's new. What's going on here? And talk with them and help work with them to overcome the negative behavior. It's never you versus your child. It is always you and your child versus the negative behavior. Hopefully that was helpful. If it was, like this video, subscribe on YouTube, subscribe on Instagram, subscribe on Facebook. It's at Mister Stu TV on all places. You can click that subscribe button, click that like button. Hopefully this has been helpful for you in understanding consequences and understanding that punishment is not always necessary to have good discipline for a child. Great. Thank you so much. This is one that I have been, you know what? I'm going to wait on that one. I want to do one more, I guess, like serious question and then maybe two more serious questions. I don't know. There's a question here about pumpkin spice, and I really want to answer this question about pumpkin spice, but I'm going to hold off until a little bit later in today's episode. Let's see. Here's one. This one came in on Instagram. It's Instagram. My handle there is at Mister Stu TV. So check that out. Instagram is also where you will get to know me a little bit more personally. Facebook is more the business side of things. YouTube is more the tips and techniques and tricks and all that stuff. And then Instagram is where you can actually get to know me in my life. So make sure you're following me everywhere. There's different stuff on every single channel at Mister Stu TV on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. Here is the next question. I keep getting frustrated because every time I ask my child to do something simple, like clean up their toys or get ready for bed, they push back or try to negotiate with me. Why can't they just follow directions without arguing? Oh man. Here's another one. If you have felt this way, please like this video and subscribe. All the time, parents are asking, why won't they just do what I say? And then I have to show them the other side of the picture. Children practice on us. They find the safe people in their lives, and they practice new parts of their mind, new things that they've learned. They try things that they've seen on TV or heard about on YouTube or whatever it might be. All of that is in their head, and they want to try out different things, but they have to find safe places to try those things out. Children, when they are pushing back on us, they are trying out being independent. And the way that you respond to that is very important, because think of it this way. You don't want them to argue with you every single time that that you ask them to do something. But do you want them to think about everything that might happen, and do you want them to think about whether they really want to do something when their friends are trying to tell them to do something? Do you want them to push back, and do you want them to consider everything that could happen when an adult you don't trust tells them to do something? Kids are trying it out, and if we just shut them down and tell them they need to, for instance, follow everything that any adult ever tells you to do, that can end up in some pretty bad situations, some really negative situations. There was a parent who came into me, and their goal for their child was for their child to just follow directions from adults. And I had to work with them to change that language to say, follow directions from adults you trust. And that even means that I need to earn the child's trust, and that I need to earn the parent's trust, and that a teacher needs to earn a child's trust, because children can be told to do things by adults that we do not want them to do. So just because someone is an adult does not mean that a child should follow their directions. And in this question, if a child is pushing back against you or trying to negotiate with you or asking why, that is very encouraging developmentally, because it means that they are not going to just follow everything that everyone tells them to do. So the way that you respond to that, and the way that you are letting them practice on you as their safe person, is going to be how they develop that skill and are able to use it in the future. So rather than just shutting them down and saying, you do what I say because I said so, you can talk with them. And for instance, let's say it is about cleaning their room. Maybe that is something you said, pick up their toys, clean up their toys, or get ready for bed. Let's go with clean up their toys. So when you say, hey, it's time to clean up your toys, and they say, I don't want to clean up my toys. Why do I need to clean up my toys? Instead of saying, because I told you to, you can talk to them and you can say, well, what would happen if you don't clean up your toys? And they might say, oh, well, somebody could trip over it and get hurt. Oh, yeah, you're right. Somebody could trip over that toy and get hurt. Or somebody might step on it and it could get broken. Or, if you leave it out for too long, it might get shuffled around and it could get lost. And we don't want any of those things to happen, so it's time for you to put your toys away. Do you see that that is helping the child develop the skill on their own to understand what's going to happen if I do this thing and what's going to happen if I don't do this thing? And that's what we want kids to be doing. They practice pushing back against us because we are safe. If they push back against their friends, they don't know if their friends are going to be around another day. If they push back against their friends could be like, okay, well, I'm just not going to hang out with you anymore. That's not safe. A child doesn't want that to happen. So they practice on us because they know we're not going anywhere. But we have to develop in them the way to use that skill, not just shut down when they try to negotiate with us, and shut them down when they try to talk to us about things, or shut them down when they even just push back. It's our job to help them understand and develop this thinking process so that they can make better decisions for themselves in the future, so that when their friend says that they need to do something that you don't want them to do, your child in their head can be like, well, I wonder what would happen if I did that. I wonder what would happen if I didn't do that. Are there any other options? Okay, here's my choice. rather than just following along because they never got to practice pushing back and negotiating. Pushing back and negotiating are very healthy skills and important skills, and they are skills that you want your child to have. So help them develop those skills instead of shutting them down because you're just frustrated they won't follow right in the moment. See it as a learning opportunity and see it as a way for them to develop this very important, developmentally appropriate skill. And if you'll see it that way, then you can help work with them so that over time they can make more positive choices and push back against those choices like peer pressure, or push back when someone tells them to do something that they know is wrong or something that makes them feel very uncomfortable. They will have that skill built up in them. If it's the first time that they've ever been able to push back and it's a friend who's telling them to do something, they're going to do the thing their friend told them to do. But if they've been able to practice and you've worked with them on this skill, then when their friend tells them to do something, they'll be able to push back appropriately and they'll be able to give an appropriate response when the time comes. Help your child develop that skill. If this answer was helpful for you, make sure to like this video and subscribe, especially on YouTube, but on all of the social media channels. It's at Mister Stu TV everywhere. And thank you so much for writing in that question. You can write your questions in either by joining live here in the video and actually posting them in the chat, or you can send them in on any of the social media channels. You can also write an email to question@MrStuTV.com. And if you write an email there, then either myself or one of my team will find it and send it my way. Thank you so much for that question. Let's see, that was one, two, yep, okay. I'm going to do one more serious question and then the finale that you've all been waiting for, pumpkin spice. This question came in on Facebook and I'm pulling it up. Yes, okay. Here we go. I'm going to change some of the language here just to not, just because I can. So I'm going to change a bit. All right, here's the question. It was written in on Facebook. My child's nervous system frequently seems to be activated by demands. I try to be as low demand as possible because I know he's experiencing restraint collapse at school. And let me pause for just a second. Restraint collapse is where there are so many restrictions placed on a child, they just feel like, okay, I can't make any choices on my own. And kids have different tolerance for those restraints. It's another reason why we want kids to always be in the least restrictive environment, to let them have as much freedom as they possibly can. But schools a lot of times just have to be more restrictive than what kids would like. And for a long period of time, kids have to be under restriction for 8 hours a day. That's a long time for a child. And I'm not saying that anything is bad or horrible about that. It's just the reality of it. And so kids can experience what's called restraint collapse, where they just, their brains just aren't fully activated anymore. They just kind of are like, okay, no more demands. I cannot do another thing. Stop asking me to do stuff. That's restraint collapse. But his high stress levels and lashing out at home are affecting sibling relationships. He is also resistant to co-regulation and reminders for slowing breathing instead of speeding it up. Any tips or words of wisdom are appreciated. Great. First off, let me just say, it sounds like you are very attuned to your child, and I love that you are using this language. Now, I don't mean to say that everything is a thing. And what I mean by that is, like, not everything is a diagnosis and not everything is related to a diagnosis, but there are names for a lot of things. And when you know the names for things, you can kind of look them up and research and figure out what might be going on and find best ways to support. And that's really helpful. So I just love how attuned you are to your child, that it's not just this, hey, you need to do this, and why aren't you? And it's just you versus them, but you're really creating this, okay, I'm really trying to understand where you're coming from. I'm doing my best here, but there are some things you're going to have to do. And that's really how we should be as parents and caregivers, is not constantly trying to control children, but really trying to work with them and understand their world and understand their perspective on things, so that we can create environments where they can thrive and we can thrive too. And that's really what it sounds like you are trying to do here. So let me talk just a little bit about, I'm not exactly sure the ages that you're talking about and things like that, but let me kind of break down a few thoughts. First, if this child is an adolescent of some kind, so between the ages of about 10-ish to about 14-ish, children's brains develop in a way to tell them to stop listening to their parents. That definitely developmentally happens around age 12, but some kids are a little bit earlier, some kids are a little bit later. So between like 10 and 14, your child's brain is going to actually tell them to stop listening to you. And the reason for that is very adaptive. Through evolution, our brains around age 12 is actually when people as a species used to move out and start their own lives. So at age 12 is when the brain starts to say like, hey, it's time for you to stop listening to them and start to find your own way. So if they are around that age, let me just encourage you and say this is pretty developmentally appropriate. That doesn't mean it's not frustrating, but definitely developmentally appropriate. And what that means is it's time for you to start working with them instead of trying to tell them what to do. And you had mentioned some different things on co-regulation and reminders for slowing down breathing and things like that. You will have to negotiate that with them instead of telling them what to do. So here are just some general tips. If you can tell that your child they've been under restriction all day, and this happens all the time where kids have held it together all day long, and then at the end of the day, they have just got to let it out. There's a few things that you can do. There's actually a video on my YouTube channel that talks about what to do if your child has kept it together all day long and then now they just need to let it out. I will post it in a link to the response to this question. But just know that at the end of their school day, it's not the time, and you didn't say that this happens, but it's not the time when they get home from school to ask them to do another thing. When they get home from school is not the best time to rush them right into homework, for instance, because they've held it together all day for 8 hours. And then if they were to get home and then have another thing to do after they're already experiencing that restraint collapse, it is going to come out as frustration, and it is going to come out as anger. Sometimes it can even come out as aggression. So do your best to have some way for them to release at the end of the school day, whether that is everybody in the family goes on a walk, or if it's just run around the house as fast as you can, or if it's whatever it might be. Give them some time to decompress and come out of that restraint collapse, and then they're going to be more open and receptive to the things that are going on. Let's talk now about the demands that you have to place on them. Because again, like I said, it's not ideal. It's not what we want all the time, but there are just times where kids have to do things even when they don't want to, and it's going to be difficult. In those moments, do your best to work with them instead of telling them what to do. So let's say they have 3 things that they need to do. They need to shower, they need to do their homework, and I can't think of a third thing. Shower, do their homework, and they need to practice for something that they have, either band or a sport or something. So they got to practice, they got to do homework, and they need to shower. What you can do is let them make the choice of the order that they're going to do those things in and when exactly they're going to do those things. It doesn't mean that you let them go forever without doing those things, but you can say, hey, by this time, these things need to be done. Which one would you like to do first? And now, or even better, you know what? This just popped in my head. But if you are sitting down with them and you talk with them and you say, okay, let's say they just had their playtime, they just had their decompression time, they got to relax. I don't know about you. When I get home from work, I love to immediately change out of the clothes that I was wearing for work. And I like to wear, seriously, like the raggediest t-shirts and basketball shorts and just be a slob. It is fantastic feeling. And that's kind of what we need to let kids do, is be a slob for a bit. Release all of that. So they've been school all day, and now it's time for them to have their relaxation slob time. And then you can talk to them and say, okay, what are the things that need to get done for the rest of the day? And they can tell you, oh, I've got this worksheet for social studies. I know I need to practice the saxophone. I've wanted to learn the saxophone. That's why I'm saying that. And they just come up with those two things. And you say, yeah, and tonight's also night you need to take a shower. So those are the three things you need to do. They need to be done by this time. Which one would you like to do first? And do you see now, it's not, hey, do this thing. You are developing in your child this skill for them to figure out time management and figure out priorities and figure out the order that they want to do things in, the order that works best for them. They finish the first thing. Great. Okay, which thing would you like to do next? Oh, okay, sounds good. And work with them on that. And then maybe after the second thing, they're like, I need a break. You know what? There's enough time for you to have a break before you take your shower. So your shower needs to be done by this time, but you do have some time. It looks like showers don't take too long. So yeah, you've got some free time. Just make sure your shower is done by this time. Do you see then you are still putting constraints on the child, but it's very least restrictive. This is where people get the wrong idea about people like me, and they say, oh, he just says, let kids do whatever they want, whenever they want, and let them run the household. No, that's not what I'm saying. You are still putting constraints on your child, and you're still making sure that they get the things done that they need to get done, but in a negotiated way where now they are developing a skill for when you are not around anymore. If we are constantly controlling children, we are not building them up to be prepared to be away from us. And that's our whole goal as parents, as caregivers, is to develop kids who won't need us one day. So if you are having to constantly control them, then one day when you're not around, they're going to lose control. But if it's this negotiation and they're learning this skill and they're learning how to do this, then guess what? When you're not there, they're still going to be able to do it because their brain has learned this pattern and learned this skill on what to do. So it's not about just letting children run wild and do whatever they want. It's about negotiating to develop the skill in their mind so that they can do it. That's what it's all about. So that's part. With those demands that you have to place on them, that's one way to do it. And again, take this, you know your family, you know the things that work and the things that don't work. See if there's some ways that you can work that in to how you work with your child. Then you also talked about co-regulation and reminders for slowing his breathing instead of speeding it up. It's again one of those negotiated things. For those who don't know, co-regulation is how children learn self-regulation. Co-regulation in the simplest form is basically when the child is out of control, we remain in full control of ourselves, and the child's brain picks up on the fact that we are calm. And because we are able to stay calm, their brain tells them that they can stay calm too. That's co-regulation in its simplest form. You can Google it and find out more. But there are some ways with co-regulation for reminders of actually doing the breathing with children. It comes back to this same idea of instead of telling them what to do, work with them to develop what they can do. So you can see that I'm gonna lose it. And you can come over, and instead of telling them what to do, you can actually co-regulate with your child without saying a word. You can come over and you start breathing at their pace. So you start breathing with them, match their breathing. And what that does is it tunes your brains in together. And I don't want to dive all the way into how that works exactly. But, and I've got somebody on Instagram. James, thank you so much for joining. So you can actually work with your child, and maybe they're breathing really fast. You start breathing at their pace. So it's, and they're breathing with you. Okay. Now you start to slow down. So you go from, and it's a gradual process. It's not just a switch like what I just did, but you go from this fast breathing and you go slower and slower and slower, and you'll see that your child will start to go slower and slower and slower because you took the time to tune in to their channel of this fast breathing. So instead of just telling them what to do, you can come along with them and you can do something like that. Or let's say that they come in and they go, they are bothering me. I can't believe it. Why? I'm going to lose it. I don't know what I'm going to do. Then you can look at them and you can go, oh, thank you so much for coming to see me. What are some things you think you could do? And now you're not telling them what to do. You are helping them develop a skill on how they can figure out what to do in those situations. And those are some of the ways that you can fight through some of that restraint collapse and fight through some of that completely developmentally appropriate behavior of them starting to stop listening to you as much. We want kids to develop their own selves, their own sense of identity, and we want them to do that in healthy ways. They're going to mess it up first. They're going to get it wrong first. They're going to make mistakes first, and that's okay. It's just we have to be willing to work with them through those mistakes, through those tough times, and then develop the skills in their mind so that they can do it on their own without us one day. Hopefully that is helpful. I kind of went all over the place there, but it really comes down to working with your child and helping them make decisions rather than telling them the decisions to make. And if you'll do that, then over time, they'll be able to do it more on their own. You'll have to have those conversations less, and that might even break your heart a little bit because they're starting to need you a little bit less. But it's so encouraging to see as kids develop those skills and they're able to stay in control of themselves even better. Hopefully that is helpful. If it was, make sure to like this video and subscribe, especially on YouTube, but across all of the social media channels. Thanks so much. All right, everybody. I've got one more question, and this is one I am so excited to talk about. This is one that for me, I just don't get it. I don't understand what the deal is here. I do understand what the deal is, but I can tell you pumpkin spice does not taste good. If you are with me, like this video, like wherever you're watching, like it and subscribe because I am here for more hot takes. Pumpkin spice is not good. It does not taste good. Don't like it. I don't like it in most things. I definitely don't like it in coffee. It's gross. Pumpkin spice, like cookies, gingerbread. It's basically gingerbread with a couple other things in it. Pumpkin spice. I saw the other day there was pumpkin spice Twinkies. Ugh. Pumpkin spice hummus. No, we need to stop this whole deal with pumpkin spice. This question came in and I'm so excited to talk about it. Here it is. Why does it feel like everyone is suddenly obsessed with pumpkin spice this time of year? Is it just clever marketing or is there something more to it? It is both clever marketing and there is something more to it. Let's break it down. There's to me, there are three main factors. Four. Let's go with four. Four main factors. And let me write them down so I don't forget what the... Oh, I don't have anything, so I'm going to try to remember my four main factors here. Four main factors that make us want pumpkin spice. I can't say make us enjoy pumpkin spice because I don't think most people enjoy it. I think most people have been tricked into thinking that they enjoy it. But there are four main things that are going on. First is that the pumpkin spice stuff is loaded with sugar. That is one of the biggest pieces of this whole puzzle, is that sugar makes our brains feel very good. Sugar releases a chemical called dopamine, and if you were to look at, I don't have the statistics here, but if you were to look at how much sugar is put into a pumpkin spice latte, for instance, from Starbucks, it is unreal. There is so much sugar, and sugar feels really good to our brains. So that's number one, is there's this flood of this dopamine chemical that makes us be like, oh, I hate the taste of this, but man, it is making me feel good. So that's number one. Number two is actually a phenomenon that maybe you didn't know about. And there is a name for this phenomenon. I just can't remember what the name is. There is a phenomenon that if something costs money, or if something has cost you a certain amount of money, your brain will actually trick you to believe that that thing is better than if it were cheaper. Starbucks, their whole business model is built around this idea that expensive coffee must be better. It's not. It's not better coffee. I don't know what to tell you. I know people are going to fight me on this. People are going to post in the comments. They're going to be like, yes, it is. It's such better coffee. No, it's not. Your brain will tell you that it's better because it cost you more, and you don't want to admit, and I don't mean this from a conscious level, from a subconscious level, your brain doesn't want to admit that something you paid that much money for was a flop. Starbucks ain't that good, you all. And again, I'm not saying don't get your Starbucks. If you love your Starbucks and you got the money for Starbucks, go get your Starbucks. I could get Starbucks, just don't want it. Don't want it, don't need it. Don't do Starbucks. It's this idea that because it costs us more, it must be better. And there have been tons of studies done on this where actually if you give away free tickets to something, fewer people will show up than if you had charged $5 for a ticket. And then if you charge $5 for a ticket, $10 for a ticket, $20 for a ticket, and $50 for a ticket, on and on. The more you charge for the ticket, the more likely someone is to say that it was a better program just based on the price of their ticket, not based on seeing a different show. They can go to the exact same show, and the person who paid more for their ticket is more likely to say it was good. So you got the dopamine and you got this money thing going on. There's a third thing that's happening. The third is just this social idea. If it's a status symbol, for instance, and I know I keep going to Starbucks because Starbucks is kind of the main one doing this pumpkin spice stuff, but it's a status symbol to be holding Starbucks. So if you are holding Starbucks, you look cool to the people around you. And let's admit it, all of us want to kind of look cool to the people who are around us. We don't always care if everybody thinks that we're cool, but to the people around us, we want to look cool. So if you're holding a Starbucks cup, or let's go the other route, there are groups of people who would look cooler not holding a Starbucks cup. That's where kind of this hipster coffee trend has come in, where it's not a Starbucks cup, it's a different brand of coffee, or it's a coffee cup that doesn't have a brand on it because now I'm a hipster. Well, guess what? You paid just as much and it's just as poor of a cup of coffee. It sounds like I'm dissing all that. If you love it, go for it. But I'm just explaining what's going on in your brain. It's a social thing. So this pumpkin spice thing, we kind of hear people talking about it. It's like, oh yeah, I love pumpkin spice too. And in our head, we're like, I don't really like pumpkin spice, but I don't want to be the one that says I don't like pumpkin spice. It's a social thing. So you got the dopamine. You got the money thing. You got the social thing. And then there is a nostalgia piece. Oh, look at me. I remembered all 4 points just off my head. There is a nostalgia piece that goes with pumpkin spice. Those spices, it's cinnamon, nutmeg, clover. I think that's it. Cinnamon, nutmeg, and clover. Oh, and ginger, I think, is in there too. Those spices are spices that we typically have around holiday seasons. Holidays, for many people, are very happy, positive times. Now, the reason that that's so important is because in your brain, the part of your brain that processes smells like cinnamon, ginger, clove, nutmeg, that processes those smells, it's in what's called the temporal lobe. The temporal lobe is also responsible for processing memory. It's responsible for processing mood. So if you are smelling these things that remind you of these positive times, then your brain is going to think this thing is also positive. It's a nostalgia factor. It's not really happening. It's just that because I have smelled these smells in a positive environment before, and the part of the brain that's processing the smell is directly connected to the part of my brain that's processing memory and mood, and the memories and moods that I remember from these smells in the past are positive, then I have a positive experience while I'm drinking this terrible drink. So it's all those factors together. You got the dopamine rush of sugar. You are believing that it's better just because you paid more for it. There's a social aspect to it. And then your brain is actually connecting it to previous times when you had good experiences with those smells. That is why we're so obsessed with pumpkin spice. And I know people are going to post and they're going to be like, no, I love the taste of pumpkin spice. That's fine. I'm glad you believe that you like the taste of pumpkin spice. But I just don't get it. I'm not a pumpkin spicer. Never have been. Don't believe I ever will be. And that's okay with me. But it's also okay with me if you are a pumpkin spicer for life. Throw it on everything. Put it in everything. Tell me your favorite pumpkin spice recipes. I can't wait to hear them. And make sure that you like this video and subscribe so that you can figure out more strange things about the brain and why we like some of the things that we like and do some of the things that we do. That's all I've got for us today. Thank you so much for joining. Hopefully this was helpful for you to understand kids better. Hopefully you as an adult now understand kids better, because if you can understand them better, you can create environments where kids and their caregivers, you, can thrive. I love helping adults better understand kids. And if that sounds like a good match for you and an event that you might have coming up, or a training that a staff you either are in charge of or work on might need, please reach out to me. You can head over to badkidsdon'texist.com/booking, and there you'll find all the information you need to hire me as a keynote speaker, workshop leader, or trainer. And I would love to talk with you about whatever your event is to make that event a great one. If you haven't yet, pick up your copy of Putting the Pieces Together, Understanding and Supporting Children with Autism Spectrum Disorder. Again, your copy will not have this not for resale on it. This is my proof copy. So check that out and make sure that you get your copy. I'll throw a link in the chat. Yes, Shelly. Yes, I'm with you. It smells great. And I wish I liked it. I just don't. It just doesn't taste very good. But make sure you grab your copy of the book as well. And I'm so excited for all that it's doing, and hopefully that it can help even more children with autism spectrum disorder be understood and supported in the ways that they need. Thank you all so much for joining me. Please like this video and subscribe so you don't miss out on any of the mental health fun, tips, tricks, techniques, all of that on all my channels. I'm at Mister Stu TV on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. And there's different things on every single channel. So make sure you like and subscribe everywhere so you don't miss out. Thanks so much for joining, and I will see you all again next week. Until then, peace.